The dawn prayer had barely concluded when whispers began to ripple through the congregation of Al-Noor Mosque. As the golden hues of sunrise filtered through the stained glass, casting mosaics of light across the prayer hall, the murmurs centered around one undeniable fact. Their young Imam Malik was an enigma wrapped in devotion, his sermons imbued with a depth that belied his age. Raised in the humble outskirts of Qadir by a father revered as a sage, and a mother who taught the Quran with a tender ferocity, Malik had absorbed more than just the teachings of Islam. He had inherited a legacy of unshakable faith and community service. Today, as he stood before his small but growing flock, there was a palpable sense of something new beginning. The previous imam had left big shoes to fill, and the community, though skeptical at first, was now buzzing with anticipation. Malik's voice echoed softly against the ancient walls as he began his sermon. In the pursuit of understanding our place within this vast universe, he intoned, we must anchor ourselves not to the transient, but to the eternal truths that have guided generations. His words reached into the hearts of his listeners, sparking a connection that transcended the boundaries of age and social status. Yet, outside the comforting confines of Al-Noor, the city of Qadir pulsed with the energy of the modern world. Here, tradition grappled with change, and Malik knew he would soon have to confront the challenges posed by rival mosques and the dazzling, if superficial, allure of Imam Junaid's ministry. But for now, he focused on laying a solid foundation of trust and spiritual integrity within his community, one prayer at a time. As Malik walked through the bustling streets of Qadir, his heart sank with every step that brought him closer to Imam Junaid's mosque. The building was a magnificent spectacle, its minarets piercing the sky, its doors open wide like arms welcoming the world. Inside, the air was thick with incense and the murmur of 1,000 prayers. Here, faith seemed to be measured in gold and grandeur. Imam Junaid was delivering a sermon that resonated like thunder through the halls, his voice confident and enveloping. Malik stood at the back, a silent observer in a sea of enraptured faces. Junaid spoke of divine favor and miracles, his words wrapped in the certainty of someone who believed he was chosen. The congregation hung on every syllable, their faith intertwined with the awe-inspiring aura of their leader. Outside, vendors sold relics and amulets, each promising blessings and protection. It struck Malik that faith here was not just a spiritual experience, but a commercial enterprise, thriving under Junaid's charismatic leadership. As he watched, families poured in, their expressions a mix of reverence and desperation, seeking solace in the miraculous rather than the spiritual discipline Malik cherished. Returning to the modest surroundings of Al-Noor, the difference was palpable. His mosque offered none of the opulence or spectacle of Junaid's. It was a humble place where the Quran's verses were the only adornment. That night, as Malik lay in his small room adjoining the mosque, the echo of Junaid's powerful sermon haunted him. Was this the kind of leader he was supposed to become to succeed? The question lingered, a heavy shadow in his thoughts. Under the cover of a starless night, Imam Malik met with Sheikh Rahim in a dimly lit corner of the old market. The air was thick with the scent of incense and a palpable sense of foreboding. Rahim, with a knowing smile, presented an ancient wooden box, its surfaces etched with intricate Arabic calligraphy that shimmered under the flicker of nearby lanterns. These artifacts, Rahim whispered, as if the walls themselves were listening, carry the blessings of the unseen. They will fill your mosque with seekers of truth and followers in abundance. But remember, every blessing comes with its price. Malik's heart pounded with a mix of dread and anticipation. The promise of reviving his struggling mosque was enticing, yet the shadows that danced across Rahim's face spoke of hidden depths and secrets not meant for the mortal realm. As Malik reached out hesitantly to touch the box, the carvings seemed to pulse with a life of their own, beckoning him to embrace a power beyond his understanding. Imam, the path to greatness often wins through the unknown, Rahim continued, his eyes locking onto Malik's with an intensity that bordered on hypnotic. Will you step forward or will you retreat? At that moment, Malik knew his decision would alter the course of his destiny forever. As the artifacts began to exert their influence, the mosque transformed overnight. Lights seemed to burn brighter, and every sermon Malik delivered echoed with an uncanny power that drew people in from the streets. The influx of donations was swift and substantial, as if the mosque had suddenly been blessed by an invisible benefactor. Yet, as Malik watched his community grow, a nagging doubt began to claw at the edges of his conscience. The whispers of the jinn were subtle at first, like faint shadows flickering at the corner of his vision. These beings, bound to the artifacts by ancient pacts, began to demand more than just acknowledgement, they sought veneration. Malik noticed changes not just in the physical space of the mosque, but in the spiritual atmosphere. The air grew heavy, and the once peaceful silences that filled the corners of Al-Noor now thrummed with a restless energy. One evening, as he prepared for the Isha prayer, Malik overheard two new converts speaking about the miraculous aura of the mosque. "It's as if the walls themselves whisper guidance," one commented. The other nodded, his eyes wide with a zeal that seemed fueled more by the spectacle than by faith. In that moment, Malik realized the gravity of what he had invited into his sanctuary. The pact was altering more than the mosque, it was changing the very soul of his community. As the moon cast a silvery glow over Qadir, Imam Malik found himself pacing the quiet corridors of Al-Noor Mosque, haunted by the changes he saw in Amina. Once vibrant and full of life, her spirit now seemed dimmed, her once bright eyes shadowed with fatigue. The mosque's walls, which should have echoed with the joyous sounds of prayer and community, now seemed to reverberate with an ominous silence that clung to his conscience. Malik's heart grew heavy with guilt as he watched Amina struggle to maintain her usual fervor during prayers. It was during one particularly solemn evening, as he observed her from a distance, that the full weight of his decisions came crashing down upon him. Her frail form was a stark reminder of the cost of his ambitions, a cost paid not by him, but by the innocent. The realization struck him like a thunderbolt. This was not the prosperity he had sought, not if it was built on the suffering of his followers. With each passing day, the spiritual debt seemed to grow, tainting the very essence of his teachings. Determined to confront the dark pact that bound them, Malik resolved to seek a way out, not just for Amina's sake, but for the entire community he vowed to serve. His resolve solidified under the moonlit sky. He would undo the harm, no matter the personal cost. As Malik stared into the troubled eyes of his congregation during a Friday sermon, the weight of his deceit pressed heavily on his heart. Here, gathered before him, were the faces of those he had vowed to lead towards the light, yet he had drawn them into the shadows instead. The sight of Amina, pale and visibly weakened, became a stark reminder of the cost of his ambition. That night, unable to find peace, Malik walked the quiet halls of Al-Noor Mosque long after the lights were dimmed. The cool tiles under his feet, and the serene echo of his footsteps in the empty prayer hall brought a momentary solace, but the turmoil within him grew. His father's words echoed in his memory, reminding him of the virtues of patience and humility that he had once held dear. With dawn approaching, Malik made a resolute decision. He would confront Sheikh Rahim at first light, determined to reclaim the soul of Al-Noor, and release his followers from the unseen chains of the pact. This decision did not come lightly, as Malik knew the path to redemption would be fraught with challenges, but his resolve was clear. For the sake of his community and his own spiritual integrity, he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. In the dead of night, when the whispers of doubt grew too loud to ignore, Imam Malik found himself kneeling on the cold floor of Al-Noor Mosque, his forehead pressed against the prayer mat. The weight of his choices bore down on him, and in the solemn silence of the mosque, he sought divine guidance. A vivid dream that night revealed a path shrouded in thorns and light, his path to redemption. Awakening with a renewed sense of purpose, Malik resolved to confront Sheikh Rahim, and demand an end to the sinister pact. With dawn breaking over the horizon, Malik set out to find Rahim, his heart heavy but his resolve unbreakable. Their meeting was tense, charged with an air of finality. Malik, once tempted by Rahim's promises, now stood firm, his faith his shield. He argued not only for the cessation of the pact, but also for the recovery of all who had been unknowingly ensnared by its consequences. This ends now, Malik declared, his voice echoing through Rahim's dimly lit chamber. I will no longer allow the souls of my followers to be the currency of our success. Rahim, taken aback by Malik's unexpected courage, realized the true strength of the men before him, a strength drawn from profound faith and genuine repentance. Under the cloak of darkness, Malik faced the greatest challenge of his spiritual life. The night air was thick as he confronted Sheikh Rahim, the keeper of the ancient artifacts that had once promised prosperity but had instead brought despair. Malik's voice trembled with a mixture of fear and determination as he demanded, "Release my community from this pact. I seek redemption for us all, not just growth built on shadows and suffering." Sheikh Rahim's eyes gleamed with an unsettling calm as he responded, "Undoing such a pact comes with a price, Malik. Are you prepared to pay it?" The question hung heavily between them, a stark reminder of the grave choices that lay ahead. Malik nodded, his resolve hardened by the sight of Amina's frailty and the growing unease within his flock. "Whatever the cost, it cannot weigh more than the burden of exploiting those I vowed to protect," he declared. The ritual to break the pact was intense and demanding, drawing upon Malik's deepest reserves of faith. As dawn broke, the artifact's once overwhelming presence faded into nothing more than dusty relics. Freed from the sinister bond, Malik felt the weight of deceit lift from his shoulders, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose and the hope of genuine spiritual renewal for Al-Nur Mosque. As dawn broke over the city of Qadir, the soft light illuminated Al-Nur Mosque, casting long shadows and bathing its humble walls in a golden hue. Inside, Imam Malik prepared for the morning prayers, his heart lighter than it had been in months. The mosque, once a center of superficial allure, was now a sanctuary of peace and genuine spiritual seeking. Malik walked among the early risers, greeting each with a warm smile and an open heart, feeling the genuine connection that had once eluded him in his quest for grandeur. He noticed Amina among the congregation, her face brighter and her spirit visibly lifted. Her recovery was not just a relief, it was a testament to the power of faith and the resilience of the human spirit. Today, Malik planned to address his community about the real value of humility and the dangers of greed. He intended to share his journey, not to seek absolution from his followers, but to guide them with the hard-earned wisdom of his own failings. As the call to prayer echoed through the mosque, Malik stood ready, a man transformed by trials, prepared to lead his flock not by miracles, but by the enduring light of truth. In the soft light of dawn, Imam Malik stood before his congregation, a man transformed. As the gentle rays filtered through the windows of Al-Nur Mosque, they illuminated the faces of those who had weathered the storm alongside their Imam. True strength, Malik began, his voice resonating with a depth earned through trials, comes not from the miracles we claim to wield, but from the steadfast faith we hold in the most challenging times. He spoke of the lessons learned, the importance of humility, and the dangers of greed. The community listened, their hearts open and their spirits uplifted by the genuine warmth in his words. Malik emphasized the value of sincerity in worship and the deep, unbreakable bond that should exist between a leader and his followers, one founded on trust and spiritual integrity. As the sermon concluded, the congregation felt a renewed sense of purpose. The mosque had not just survived, it had been purified, its foundations stronger than ever. Malik's journey had taught them all that the path to true spiritual enlightenment was paved with honesty, reflection, and an unwavering commitment to the core values of their faith. In this new chapter for Al-Nur, every prayer and every act of kindness was a testament to their collective revival. As the first light of dawn graced the minarets of Al-Nur Mosque, whispers of reverence and curiosity filled the air. Imam Malik, standing before his community, reflected the golden sunrise that streamed through the mosque's windows, his presence a calming force in the bustling city of Qadir. Raised under the watchful guidance of his pious parents, Malik's deep-rooted faith and earnest demeanor had quickly earned him the trust and love of his congregation. However, outside the spiritual sanctuary of Al-Nur, the glittering appeal of Imam Junaid's grand mosque beckoned. Its opulence was unmatched, with towering minarets and lavish decorations that drew in the masses. Malik, walking the fine line between admiration and skepticism, felt the pull of this superficial piety. He pondered the path of his own mosque, simple, sincere, yet overshadowed by the grandeur next door. One fateful night, as Malik wrestled with his mosque's humble influence, he encountered Sheikh Rahim. Under the dim glow of market lanterns, Rahim presented Malik with ancient artifacts, promising to transform Al-Noor into a beacon of prosperity and popularity. The temptation was immense. The artifacts, imbued with mysterious powers, promised rapid growth, but at a murky spiritual cost. Driven by a desire to uplift his community, Malik succumbed to the allure, rationalizing the means for a greater good. The mosque filled quickly, donations flowed, and his sermons gained an inexplicable power. Yet, as the mosque thrived, Malik noticed unsettling changes, whispers at the edges of his perception, a subtle darkening of the atmosphere, as if the very walls were watching. Among the new faces was Amina, a devout worshipper whose health mysteriously began to wane. Her vitality seemed drained with each prayer in the transformed mosque, her spirit dimming as the building's new aura grew stronger. Malik watched, helplessly, as his decisions seemed to leech the life from one of his most faithful followers. Haunted by Amina's suffering, Malik's nights were restless, filled with doubt and fear. He realized that the artifacts demanded more than gratitude, they required a tether to the souls of his congregation. The spiritual debt was palpable, tainting his teachings and corrupting the pure intent with which he had once led. Determined to break free from the pact, Malik sought Rahim, demanding an end to the arrangement. The confrontation was tense, with Rahim revealing the true nature of the pact, binding, relentless, and unforgiving. Malik was faced with a daunting choice: continue to see his congregation suffer, or risk everything to save them. With resolute courage, Malik chose to sever the ties with the dark forces at play. The process was arduous and fraught with peril, as Malik battled not only the supernatural forces, but also his own doubts and fears. Through sheer will and faith, he managed to dismantle the pact, liberating himself and his followers from the unseen chains. As the artifact's influence waned, so did their hold on Al-Noor. The mosque, once buzzing with unnatural allure, returned to its former simplicity. Amina's health gradually improved, mirroring the restoration of the mosque's sanctity. Malik's congregation, initially dwindling, began to return, drawn by his renewed commitment to genuine spiritual guidance. In the aftermath, Malik stood before his congregation, humbled yet steadfast. He shared his journey, not seeking forgiveness, but offering his story as a testament to the perils of greed and the strength of unwavering faith. Al-Noor Mosque had emerged from the shadows, not adorned with gold or filled with false promises, but resilient, pure, and inviting, a true sanctuary for those seeking solace in their faith. As the mosque's simple, yet profound beauty shone under the dawn light, Malik knew that the true strength of Al-Noor lay in its community, its humility, and its unshakable faith. The path had been difficult, but the dawn of a new day at Al-Noor Mosque promised a future filled with hope and enlightenment, guided by a leader who had been tested by fire and emerged with a deeper understanding of what it means to serve and lead with integrity.